You're watching Dukascopy TV. I'm Elaine Stenson. Last Tuesday, analysts complained about the lack of reform details released from China's gathering of the Communist Party leadership. But a new policy package that was announced on Friday has boosted the Asian markets. Wendy Liu from Nomura in Hong Kong joins me on the line now. Wendy, you've described Friday's announcement as a sentiment-uplifting event, but that we will start to see pain coming after all this initial excitement dies down. But when will we start to see the long-term gain?
Asking me to be a shrink, I think that's quite hard to say. I think clearly in the past 2 days, people are looking at the medium-term re-rating opportunity, which we do agree, but I think the market tends to look out, 3 months ahead. And I think the pain could set in. People will be thinking more of it, probably starting the second quarter of next year.
In your opinion, who will be the real winners and losers from these reforms once they have been implemented?
I think it's the mass market consumption is the real winner, as well as investment that offers efficiency and productivity. So these are two broad buckets. I think the losers are, corruption-driven consumption. To some degree, this is the high-end consumption. And then, polluting and inefficient, obsolete capacity. Yeah. So I think those are the two broad buckets. You're seeing the shift from focusing to people in the power to the masses. So essentially, from the government officials and related parties to the average person in the street. And then on the other hand, you're seeing GDP growth at all costs moving to cleaner and more efficient growth.
One economist described the reforms as groundbreaking and unprecedented. Do you think that this is a fair assessment?
I think it's groundbreaking, and on many fronts, it is probably the most sweeping set of reforms, to be ushered in the past 2 decades. Yeah, so I would agree with that. And I think if you look around the world, China is probably one big economy that is willing to do sizable reforms, structural reforms, in addition to being accommodating from a monetary policy standpoint.
Wendy, if we go back to the start for a moment, what do you think it was that triggered the leaders' decision to make such strong policy changes in the first place?
I think the reforms, a lot of these reforms were contemplated over the past few years because reforms in China are generally ways to address the new problems, right? So, 10 years ago, the problems are different than what we have now, but as you have accumulated a whole bunch of problems, then you need to address them. And I think people with an understanding of the Chinese political apparatus understands that you generally usher in reform with the new leadership. Yeah, mm-hmm. The outgoing leadership tend not to initiate reforms that they cannot end. Yeah, so to some degree, this reform probably was delayed because the global financial crisis and the stimulus package and the fact that the outgoing administration was stepping down. So I think it's just being accumulated over the past several years, and it's not getting, through the system and getting, starting to get implemented.
We're expecting these reforms to have a very positive impact on China's economy. But what about the global economy?
I prefer not to comment on it because I'm not the global economist here. Yeah, but I think China is producing higher quality growth than just pure growth, and so there will be less waste. So from whatever China buys, it will probably be a savvier buyer. Yeah, because it's more focused on quality.
And finally, Wendy, were you expecting these reforms to be quite so dramatic?
I think we were probably one of the first brokers to articulate that the reforms would be quite significant, and it would be, offering medium-term structural upside. But we don't see a whole lot of short-term macro upside related to the reforms, and we still hold that view. And then I think that view has been, showing up in our report since probably September. So we've been talking about reforms for some time. And I think the other thing that may be relevant to investors is that this anti-corruption measures are becoming institutionalized. So that becoming a new normal is another theme that we've been talking about since the beginning of the year.
Okay, Wendy, we'll leave it there for today. And that's all we have time for now. But do check back for more interviews and updates throughout the week. Bye for now.